Hello, this is Linda Vettrus-Nichols, and I have an amazing guest for you, Tania Gerard, Congruency Coach Tania Gerard. Welcome, Tania.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. This is so fun.
Oh, I tell you, Women Who Run with the Wolves is my favorite book. I read it pre and post divorce, so it got me through a very difficult time. And you have an interesting story, like how you came to the book, right? So I'd love to hear your story.
Yes. Well, I was trying to remember the year that I got the book because it was ages ago. I think I got it around 1995.
Wow.
A dear friend that she used to be my teacher in college, and we became friends because we have so much in common, and we're still friends even though we're apart from, she lives in Mexico, I live here, but she is such an important person in my life. Nice. And she came one day with the hardcover edition, and she was like, you need to read this book. I don't know, I was like 21 or something like that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I got the book, but I didn't read it immediately. And that is something that we have discussed. Like, this book there's some magic around this book. It can find you or you can find it, but you will start reading it when you're ready to read it. So a few years after that, I decided to leave everything I knew. And I packed just a few possessions, and I packed that book.
Oh, you did? Oh,
yes,
my gosh. You grew up in Mexico in kind of that old world, right? And then you ended up eventually in America, but you went to Spain to really probably find yourself. And then you came here to this whole different world, right? But you escaped family
and a very traditional, very constrictive life, very, the world of measurement. And if you didn't fit that mold, then something was wrong with you. And what I did was I left that place and I went to live to a little town. One of these towns that the book talks about. Ooh. One of these towns that Clarissa Pinkola roamed around, and she just got there and sat and waited to see what she would listen and ask questions. So I was on sort of a quest like that. I had my mind on volunteering with nonprofits, and these nonprofits would work with little towns and little villages in Mexico. Oh. So yes, and it was just a lovely 3 years of my life. And it was on the first house that I lived when I unpacked the book, and I was like, okay, so I decided to bring it. Let's see what it has to tell me.
And this was in Mexico or in Spain?
In Mexico. In Mexico, in a city that's called San Miguel de Allende. That is very, people know it because it's this gorgeous colonial town. Okay. And it was the headquarters for many nonprofits working in the area. So I moved to that city. It's like a magical city.
Neat.
And there are a lot of legends around that city that it has this quartz, this quartz thing underground, and people go there to find themselves. There's this whole magical, mystical thing about this city, this town. I don't know. I guess it's a city,
right?
Yes. And so I got the book and I opened it, and the first story that I read was La Loba. And it was very interesting to see myself reflected in that story in a way that is quite different from what I understand right now, 20 years after that, right? Or 25, I don't know how many years after that. A million years after that. But at that moment, it was all about, and we will get into the story, but it was all about recovering my pieces to resurrect, to be whole again, right?
Yeah. Like who you really are, not what your family said you were supposed to be.
Yes.
Love it, love it, love it. All right, we're moving on. So do what your heart is telling you. That's exactly what you did. And listen listened to your heart, right? And you
Yes.
listened to it honestly. So tell us a little bit more.
Well, in that adventure, that journey, I discovered many things that I feel I'm still understanding, I'm still processing many years after that. But one of the things that has been very relevant is with me, and also as a witness of my clients' processes, is that when you decide to go on this journey of letting go of the measurement, letting go of the judgment, and finding out who you are, like that, like
To the
who are you
bone.
in your nature,
Who you
in
are
your
to the
core.
bone.
Yes, who you are to the bones. Honesty is very important because you will see things that you not necessarily want to, or you didn't feel prepared to, or you didn't expect to.
Nice.
And that's when ego rebels, right? Like when ego says, wait, stop, this is not working, this is not how it's supposed to be,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yes.
Yes. So
You know that language.
yeah, well, yes, you taught me that idea of the ego rebelling. We've had conversations about this.
Y'all.
Yes, and it is true. And the ego, we were discussing in the group the other day that this fear, this I was not prepared to find this about myself, sometimes ends up with, a broken bone or a terrible headache, or like it stucks you. It gets like you cannot move for a few weeks.
Yeah, if you deny it, you're going to be
Until
stuck in the energy of it, right?
yes, and until you're willing to move forward, right? And to say, okay, this is weird, but I'm willing to go through it.
Yeah.
I'm willing to cover myself, to listen to my heart, and to stop judging myself.
Yeah, right.
Like, what I think is very important to remember, that all these processes, all these personal processes, need to happen outside of judgment.
Right?
Mm.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And then wisdom rather than judgment. So tell us more about wisdom and how to tap into wisdom.
Yes. Well, I will go back to La Loba story.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this story, Clarissa Pincola tells us the story of an old woman that lives in everybody's soul, if you want to see her. And she's like this grumpy, dark, not conventional woman. And what she does is that she collects bones. She collects fragments,
Right.
parts of these sacred animals, because these one thing that Clarissa Pincola does, and I feel like the anthropologist in me loves it, that she collects myths that different cultures share, and that idea of the sacred animal, of the animal that represents our completeness as humans. So this Loba woman, she collects all these pieces, and when she has a complete skeleton, she sings a song, a song inspired by her wisdom. Like she stares at this skeleton and she thinks of what song she'll sing, and then she sings the song, and the skeleton comes alive. It becomes complete again. And I feel that's what we do in life, right? Like there's every decade has a thing. Like in your 20s, you're searching yourself. In your 30s, you're like doing all these things that you found out about yourself. And then you get to your 40s and you're like, well, I thought I wanted that, but what I really want is like, you are revising all these ideas that you had about yourself, and you're seeing yourself from that light. So that's the thing. Like if we judge ourselves, if we say I was wrong, or I was stupid, or I made a bad decision, you know what? No, you're limiting the wisdom that you can tap into if you're using those harsh words with you. You always make the best possible decision. it might not work out, but that's a different situation. Your intention is to make the best possible decision, right?
Best possible decision in the moment.
Yes.
I love it. Okay. That's really good. All right. So be courageous. Oh my gosh, girl. You totally left the, security of family and people who knew you and, stepped out into the big bad world, as they say. and you ended up finding your truth, getting away from the filters and the imprinting, right?
Yes.
All right. So tell us more about that.
Well, my journey started as a physical journey. I moved places, but I think everybody's journey is the same, even if you stay in the same place. And honestly, sometimes it's harder to find these paths and to find the courage to explore these paths when you stay in the same context. And that's because things shift inside, but they not necessarily shift outside. And that creates a contrast that it's important to address afterwards. But first, we summit the courage to get into this journey of finding who we truly are. What in my system, in my congruency system, I call it well-being, but it's because it's way beyond happiness. It's way beyond. It's like the whole harmony between your personal well-being, your social well-being, your spiritual well-being. It's that feeling of being in the right place at the right time and enjoying it.
I love it.
To me, that's the truth.
And the treasure, right?
And of course,
the congruency is the treasure of your own truth.
Exactly. That you are so happy in that search that you're not willing to give it up.
Right.
So you treasure it through your boundaries. You treasure it through your self-reflection. You treasure it through this connection with yourself.
Right.
Through this, you becoming your favorite person, your main cheerleader, you becoming your person, your woman.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a client who's she's like the cheerleader, I can be your cheerleader for her clients. And the only reason she can do that is because she found her own best friend at age 50, which was herself. Right.
Yes.
And she can be the cheerleader for them to teach them to be the cheerleader for themselves because she got that figured out. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because that is what treasure the truth of others means. Like you can only create well-being for others. You can only hold space for other people to become themselves when you are at peace being who you are. Yeah. Like if you struggle, I work with many moms, for example, and what we talk about is that you have decided to take the immense responsibility of guide humans into the world.
Yeah.
It's like, what were we thinking, right?
Without your doctor's help, your midlife or your doula.
and yes, but that's the thing, like we cannot model them to become who they truly are if we are not who we are, if we are resentful, because when you're not protecting your truth, you become resentful, you are drained, you are tired.
Ooh, so good. Yeah, right?
Yes. So as you treasure yourself, you also model and are capable of treasuring other people's well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Okay, provide yourself with love. So, Tania, what is something that you enjoy doing that actually provides you with love just for you? Just
for me. I love art. I paint a lot. Like I really like it. And even when I don't find time to do it as often as I would like to, I give myself the chance to be thinking of what I want to do. And sometimes I spend months choosing a color palette, for example,
Wow.
because I do it like in little bits of time. But then when I'm ready, I'm ready. And I also find that my work usually reflects a personal process. Like, I'm ready to give birth to this painting, whatever it is. I don't care about the quality. It is more of a search experience. And it also provides myself with a lot of pleasure. I really like doing that.
Cool.
And I see that one of my daughters, for example, she provides herself with love by playing her piano and by spending time in front, and just sometimes she just plays with the sounds, but that's her moment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. My daughter, actually, I have a son and a daughter, and my daughter's the youngest. She would get up in the morning. She was only 4 years old. She would go down and she would just start creating all these little songs on the piano, and she absolutely loved doing that. And I really feel like that let her go into kind of like a world of her own and super express her creativity.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Then I signed her up for piano lessons, and I told the piano teacher, like, whatever you do, don't tell her to practice, because this kid, she talk about being at your wild soul. This kid was, and you know, she'll just quit. And she said, "Oh yeah, no problem. She's 4 years old. We don't need to, just need to practice. This is cool." I'm like, okay. And then a month before the recital in the spring, she says, "Oh, Amy, that's so good. If you just practiced it a little bit more, it'd be perfect for the recital." Guess who didn't make the recital? Yep.
She was outside of the world of judgment. She was
Totally.
there for the process, for the journey, not for the result, right?
Yeah, she was just always just so completely at her wild, and she could pick up, when she was in 4th grade, she just picked up the violin and played. She picked up a flute and didn't have it quite right, and this was before, I think, even that. No, that was after the violin. And the teacher just turned it a little bit, and then bam, she just played. And after like 3 lessons, I had a music teacher just like come over, and she said, "I don't know what to do with her." She said I could teach her theory, but she'd hate it. I'm like, okay, you know, so what do you do? And she can only sing if she's drunk. In front of people, she can only sing in front of people. She could sing anytime. Just gorgeous voice. Had the ear. And like, I remember when she was little and she was in the backseat of the car, and there was a baby in the backseat of the car, and we dropped the baby off, and we're driving home and the baby's still in the backseat of the car. She had such an ear that she could duplicate sound of even people. So she was a great impersonator as well. And she would do Saturday Night Live skits with a friend, and it was hysterical. I love it. I love it. All right, let's get back to this. So defend your boundaries. So that's what my daughter did. She defended her boundaries. How do you defend your boundaries, or how do you work with your clients to help them be congruent so that they're noticing their boundaries? Because it's like, oh, find your boundaries. Like, no, your boundaries are there. Just notice them, right?
Exactly. I agree with that part. I think the easiest way, because some people, when you talk about boundaries, they feel like, like that's too aggressive. At least some of the moms that I work with struggle with that. So what we do is that we start talking about, what are you saying yes to? Nice. And what are you saying no to? Because when you say yes to something, that means that you're saying no to something else, right? Yeah.
Right.
So if you are going to if you're attending this play date with that woman who you don't really like.
Yeah, right? But your kids do, so you do it for the kids.
Yes, like, okay, so you're saying yes to that. You're saying no to what? And then make an assessment. Yeah. Right? Just be very conscious. I feel that boundaries are about intentionality and consciousness. Just be very aware of saying yes. What does saying yes mean? Right?
Yeah.
And be willing to do it. And if you're not willing to do it, then don't do it. Really. Like, what's going to happen?
Yeah, and that's what you're alluded to earlier, the idea of the word well-being, right? So having boundaries is part of choosing well-being. Finding your wild woman, your Loba, your soul, getting to who you really are. It is again about choosing well-being, right?
Yes, and it's and well-being is not immediate necessarily. There's this physical expression of well-being, the pleasure, when we talk about wellness or when we talk about self-care, the first thing that usually comes to mind are all these bubble baths and
Right.
and healthy eating. And okay, so that's our physical well-being.
Yeah.
But our emotional well-being, that has to do a lot with emotional intelligence, and it has to do with other elements of our identity.
Yeah.
Emotional well-being is not immediate necessarily. Sometimes you need to make hard decisions, or you need to be willing to go through a process of chaos before everything settles down. And that is very important to know. And that's to anybody who's watching. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean you're going to suffer. It doesn't mean it's going to be hard. It means you're going to be dark.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Clarissa Pincola's account of this La Loba story, she talks about this dark woman, right? She talks about a woman that does not fit in convention, this woman who's hairy, and maybe she calls her hairy and fat. I have the quote here, but it's like somebody who doesn't fit in what is supposed to be. And there are ways, and that's something when I work with my clients, there are ways that you can communicate your process in a way that you ask your people to hold space for you, and you're like pretty much like, I will go wild and crazy for a few months, but right. I promise I will come back. I just need you to hold my space for this exploration, because I don't know what I will find.
Yep.
And I want to have the possibility of finding it, right?
Right. And when you say dark woman, it's a woman who's like operating in the darkness, which is when you're a seed and you're in the dirt, you're in the darkness, right? You're still growing and thriving. It just doesn't look like you are. And sometimes we're not patient with ourselves that way, right? So darkness doesn't mean bad. Dark woman doesn't mean bad.
No. And
well, we're trained like, well, it does, it's like, not really.
Darkness is just part of the light, and there are many myths, not necessarily, I mean, they're not in this book, but there are myths that we know the myth of what was it, Persephone, the one who marries, the myth of winter, like all representations of winter.
Yeah, it's light, but it's actually darkness in the cave, being quiet, right?
Yes, and the seed that is underground while it grows, right? It needs that darkness. Or Inanna, the myth of Inanna, that she walks you through darkness. We always think of postpartum, like this journey, right? Like you will emerge powerful, and you will emerge somebody you didn't even know you were, but you need to be willing to go and descend to the abyss and to the darkness. And it's also part of the hero journey. Mm-hmm. So thank you for clarifying. Yes, because we have this association with darkness of being negative.
Yeah.
But it's really, the darkness is also intimate, and it's also, it prevents us from distractions.
Yeah, and I love your analogy, of the postpartum depression idea of, your hormones. I mean, you just worked your ass off, in all that gestation of that baby, and give, right? And now it's receive. Mm-hmm. So for some women, it's to the extreme where they're kind of like not even functional. So they, they have people giving to them more than not, right? someone who isn't in like a real full-blown postpartum depression. But honoring the fact that you're going to be going there and not deciding that you have to do. You have a new baby. You've given and given. What can you do to receive, you know?
Yes.
Quiet things. Sleep when the baby sleeps. Your house doesn't have to be clean. That's ridiculous, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to, be out in the world, being the this, that, and the next thing. If you're choosing that, great. Then get the support that you deserve, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Okay,
Yes.
so much about choose well-being. Okay, explore your interests, right? You said that you like to do the art. What's another interest of yours, and what have been some of the interests of your clients?
Journaling, reading, this exercise of, and we discussed that, like this exercise of opening a book and playing. It's, you know what, I was discussing this with my therapist a few weeks ago. The playing, how do you play? How much do you play? And it's not necessarily an interest, but it's a channel to access joy. Mm-hmm. And this playing can be, open the fridge, see what you have, and create something with that.
Nice.
Or get a book, get Women Who Run with Wolves, open it and read the page, any page, like just open it and read the message and try to fit it in your life. Like, see, what does it mean right now?
Yeah.
So, and I also feel like if you have curiosity, if you have an interest, I would love to learn how to knit, or I would love to learn how to hike, when you give yourself the chance to explore the interest, it's not that you learn you always learn something, but it's more that you learn something about yourself.
Right.
Because you wanted your wise your wise truth, wanted you to get woman. Somewhere. Your wise woman, your La Loba.
Your wise soul.
Yes. Wanted you to get into a situation where you could discover something about yourself.
Yeah, nice.
So, yeah.
So true. And I'm sure in another interview this will get discussed. I love the river beneath the rivers here. You can have a life that's really even toxic and just nasty, and it's just not the greatest life. Maybe your husband's a complete predator or something, and you're working your way out of that. It doesn't matter what your life is like. That's the river. That's the dirty, toxic river. However, the river beneath the river, if you keep that clean and you do that through your creativity, that's what keeps a woman alive, is to be in her creativity. If you keep that river clean, you can survive anything. You don't, you're gonna die.
Yes.
Yeah,
that is true.
Cool. All right, so do what your heart is telling you to do. Be courageous in doing it, and provide yourself with love always. So how would you sum that up?
I will invite you to give yourself the chance of using this summit. Somehow this conversation found you. I would invite you to trust that, and to find what is for you in reading this book, in reading Women Who Run with Wolves.
Yeah.
Maybe you have it already. Maybe somebody gave it to you. Like it happened to me. Like maybe somebody gave it to you. Maybe you bought it and you haven't read it. This is a moment. This is the sign you have been looking for to start reading it. And if you have been curious, or if you haven't even heard about this, then please go to the library, check it out. I'm sure I'm sure it's in your library even.
Oh yeah, I think I got a used one. It's hardcover too. It's almost 3 inches thick, and I got mine like for $6 used. There's lots of ways to get your hands on the book. Borrow it, go to the library. Buy a used copy, buy a new copy, whatever turns your crank, buy a soft cover, buy a hardcover. Give yourself permission, whatever yourself is saying to do, and just do it. And and give yourself permission to read it any way you darn well please. If it's just where you just open it and you just zero in on some passage in it, cool, that's enough. Everything's enough. Just do, right? Just do. Just be, just do, out of judgment, as you said. And maybe you want to read it cover to cover. Well, give yourself permission to take it slowly, because it's like eating. And when you start eating this book and there's stuff to process, you can actually like lose your appetite, physical appetite, because there's so much to process. So give yourself permission, give yourself time to process, to chew on it, to talk with another woman about it. And that leads me to your gift. Oh my gosh, I can't believe what you're doing here. This is so nice. So Tania's offering a free gift. It's a path to the wild woman, finding your Loba. And she's 30 minutes of congruency, and calling it like a reading session, because it's going to be kind of like a fun game where if you have the book, it'll be like just open it and see where it lands, and then you guys talk about the congruency of it. If you don't have the book, she's got the book, so she'll just kind of be you for the moment, and she'll open it and zero in on something, and you guys can chew on that. So thank you so much. She's an amazing coach. She's a congruency coach, and it's like, oh my gosh, like what is that, right? You'll find out all about that. But real quick, tell us, what is a congruency coach?
Well, as a congruency coach, I help you to create sustainable well-being in your life.
Nice.
I guide you through the process of connecting with yourself, understanding yourself, creating this relationship with yourself, and feeling confident that you are choosing well-being permanently.
Perfect. I love it, because as women, we tend to think of everybody else but ourselves. So this is perfect. Thank you so much, Tania. And the link here is in your email, everybody. So, feel free to just grab it here, or just click the link in the email. And for those of you that weren't part of the summit, maybe you see this some other place, there's the link to her free offer. Thank you so much, Tania.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Linda.
Absolutely. This has been great.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Good luck, everybody. And if it's the time, find what is waiting for you in that book. It's really interesting to explore.
Yeah. And it's worth it. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thanks.